Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this Lunch and Learn session. What is the ideal category structure, categories versus attributes? I'm Robin Aitken, I'm product manager, and I'm joined also by Don Harris, who's our principal consultant at Easy Ask. We try to keep these Lunch and Learn sessions nice and short so they don't eat too much of your time. So hopefully we'll be done in 20 minutes plus whatever time we spend on questions in the end. And if you do think of a question you'd like to ask, please just type it into the question box on the GoToWebinar screen. And we'll look at those at the end of the webinar and try and address anything that's been asked. So firstly, I just really want to stress how important categories and your category structure is in relation to search and navigation, which is how people are going to find products on your site. Having a really good category structure with well-named categories is really going to improve your search results. And we're going to look at why that is over the next 20 minutes. But we do understand that the category structure you've got is what you've got, and there are reasons for the way it is, and that not everybody has an ideal category structure. And as a slight change from normal, we wanted to ask you people if you are planning on making changes. So we're going to do a little poll, and you should see something pop up on GoToWebinar. Matt's going to give you about 25 seconds to have a read and just give a response that is appropriate in terms of, do you plan on doing any restructuring of your catalog in the next 12 months? We know most people's catalogs are fairly static, and once you've got a category structure, typically it stays like that for years. But we just wanted to get a feel for if anybody is already planning on embarking on a project to do some changes.
All right, Robin, we are at 75% voted so far, and actually got a nice mix here. We got the 27% saying yes, 13% saying no, 13% also saying not sure, and about almost 50% are thinking about it. So we got a good mix here between our audience.
Oh, that's really interesting, and I'm glad that there is quite a lot of people who understand, perhaps that it's a good thing to look at these things from time to time, because the category structure is really important, and we're going to look at that in a bit more detail now, and really go back to basics about what are categories and attributes. And firstly, categories are a way to organize your product catalog, and it's usually a hierarchy or a tree structure, and some customers will have very deep and narrow tree structures, and some will have very wide and shallow. And really, there's no particular guidance on that, except that it's what is going to work best for your products. But the key thing about categories is that products exist within category or SKUs, and the difference between categories and attributes is that attributes are data items which are assigned to products and SKUs. And we can look at this in terms of the relationships with products. So ideally, a category should be thought of in terms of an is-a relationship. So, for example, the product is a hammer, or it is a circular saw, or it is a vacuum pump, whatever the products are that you sell. But those names, the hammers, circular saws, are the category names. And so a product being put within a category means it is one of those. Attributes, however, can be thought of in terms of a has-a relationship. So a product has a manufacturer, or it has a weight, or it has a color, and so I think that's really important to remember that when you're thinking about the ideal category structure, think in terms of, what is the product? It's an is-a relationship. And how should we organize the categories? So typically, there's a legacy of category structure which has come from kind of product management. So if, for example, your product management system only allows you to import manufacturer files into a single category, then you may well have a category based on the manufacturer. More recently, category structures are designed to suit customer navigation. So it's the way that the user wants to see it. And sometimes it's a combination of both. And sometimes the difference between categories and attributes can get really blurred. And a good example, particularly in retail, is something like gender, where gender is obviously really important, especially for things like clothing, where it's really important that we see men's, women's, kids, etc., as kind of top level navigation. However, we don't need to have those as top level categories. Let's have a look at another example, a tool store. And this is actually a section from a real store that I visited when I was preparing this. And there was a power tool section, and then within it, there are categories for all of the different types of tools. And this is a good structure, although we might comment that cordless maybe ought to be an attribute. Maybe there ought to be a category which is grinders, and within it you can choose whether you want a corded or a cordless grinder. But this is how it was, so this is how I'm showing it. This is a real example. And the key thing here is that these are to hold products in a is-a relationship. So a product is a cordless grinder, or it is a nailer. Now, obviously, with power tools, the brand is really, really important to most people, me included. So I have a preference for Makita tools, and so having a brand is really important. And the thing is that brand is an attribute. So product has a brand, DeWalt, or it has a brand, Bosch. But often what we see, and particularly with some storefront customers, we see brand implemented as a top level category structure. And the reason for that is for navigation. The key thing about navigation is that navigation can be done with categories and attributes, and attributes haven't always been around in these systems, and so category structures got built which allowed people to browse by brand. The problem is that if I'm a Makita fan, so I browse down to Makita, I've still got to have the next level of structure. I don't want to see 200 Makita power tools. I want to choose what type of power tool it is. And so that structure of what is the product still needs to exist there. And of course, the problem is it needs to exist under all the brands where it's relevant. And so we end up with this sort of situation where we've got category structures which are repeated under every brand. And that causes maintenance problems. It gives you a horrendous number of categories. If you've got lots of manufacturers and there's a lot of common products, there'll be a lot of repeated category structure, and any change that you make to the category structure, you're going to have to repeat across all the brands that are relevant. And in this particular example, there's another problem. Because the category name is so important to search, put in things like manufacturer names in there can cause problems, and Black & Decker is a really good example. So black might be synonymous with charcoal, for instance. So if I did a search on the site for charcoal, I might suddenly start seeing a whole page full of Black & Decker tools, which obviously wouldn't be good. So how does the category name affect search? by default, the category name is the most relevant piece of information used in search. So when a product is associated or contained within a category, if the user types a search term that matches onto that category name, those products will be found, and they will also be highly relevant, which means they will appear at the top of the results typically. This is a good thing in most cases, because if you've got well-named categories, it means the users are finding the products very easily. And remember, and this is especially true for Storefront and Infor customers, that not all your product descriptions are completely meaningful. I do training courses, so I see a lot of Storefront data. And one of the things that is pretty common is to see lots of abbreviations and acronyms and so on in the product description field, rather than a full named product type. So pneumatic nailer might have some abbreviation. And of course, that means that if somebody types pneumatic nailer into the search box, unless you've gone to the trouble of setting up all sorts of synonyms for those acronyms and abbreviations, then we're not going to find them. But of course, if those products are in a category called pneumatic nailers, then we're going to find them anyway, and it doesn't really matter that the product description is not as full as it could be. So having category names that reflect what the product is going to result in much better search. And at this stage, I'm just going to hand over to Don, who's going to talk through some of the challenges related to how we index or make searchable that category hierarchy.
Thank you, Robin. I wanted to mention basically how EasyAsk treats the category structure, and in particular in terms of searching. I also just wanted to point out as an aside, one feature that I think is fairly unique, perhaps even unique to EasyAsk, which is that when you do a search, we actually use the category structure as a refinement. So we actually place you into your category structure without the user having to navigate there. And that can be very interesting as well. In terms of, we talked about how you could have attributes in categories. Well, you also can see sites where customers can have an attribute which is called category. And so by doing this, we actually would recommend you either hide such an attribute so you don't actually have two things trying to achieve the same thing. And it also just gives you the ability, if you do have some issues with how you can treat your category structure, that you could have such an attribute that then can fill in the blanks that you might not be able to do in your category structure. But in any case, I just wanted to first mention that that the category structure also can play a role in navigation even when you're searching. The other thing regarding the particular challenge within search is how effectively we can deal with what we'd like to call combined categories. And the other thing that what happens is that you could have categories that well, actually, let me back up for a second. There's two ways that a search engine can either deal with this. You either can index the category structure completely, or you could ignore it. And often we find applications ignoring it, and there's problems in doing that. And in particular, one of the examples would be the idea of a category with a name called sweaters. In that, you might have a product that isn't referred to as a sweater. So often we think the product name should be the highest in relevancy. Well, a cardigan may not even anywhere in its text refer itself as a sweater. So it's important, though, if we could just key in the fact that, oh, there are sweaters in here, and it happens to be a cardigan, that would then appear as a search. So that's an example of where it can really be important to use the category structure for search. Additionally, if you did the opposite problem, which is to actually index all of the words in the category structure, you can have another problem. And this is where it gets into the idea of combined categories. In particular, you might have a cool category like tools and testers. And the question is, well, what's in there? Is it a tool or is it a tester? And in that situation, we can't actually be sure what the category is. So so if we did go ahead and index it just simply, if you search for a tester, you would get all the tools and vice versa. So that's one of the issues with how you can deal with it. The way EasyF treats this problem is to actually try to determine what are the combined categories. And the way we do this is actually fairly simple. They usually have some sort of name in the indicator, such as the word and, or an ampersand, or a slash, or a comma, something of that nature that indicates that there's more than one thing in this category. And so what we would do when we recognize this is essentially make sure that we don't index it quite fully. The other thing that's important to know is that in your category structure, it is a hierarchy, so therefore there are many names that are in the parentage of a particular product, and we index all of those names. And all of those names we're also going to try to determine whether or not it's a combined category or not. When the smoke clears, we end up with two columns in the index that you have control over with relevancy. One is called category name and one is called category path. The category name is the one that actually abides by these combined category rules, so that we make sure that we only use the names that were found in words that weren't combined. So we're very sure that this is what the product is. The category path is something, and by the way, we also treat that one by default. So that's the one that we will search. This is the way it's set up for, at least in your all storefront applications. It'll be by default, and it'll also be set to the highest. Of course, it's all changeable in Studio. The category path is something that we really use for Studio. It allows you to easily determine where products are. Sometimes those words are very convenient to be able to find things. If you just say category path testers, and then you have all these things that are fairly related, that could be a very convenient way of doing it. So those are used for Studio definitions. In terms of an example, here is also from an actual electrical distributor. You can see that there's a category structure of lamps and lighting, and then wire, cord, and cable, and so on. And you can very quickly point out from that rule that we were talking about which ones are combined. The first two, and then the tools and tester. EasyF would recommend or would realize that and then not index those individual words automatically. And therefore, for instance, all of the wires, all of the things that, if you search for wire, for instance, we wouldn't return you all the cords or all the cables. The other thing that's worth pointing out here is that it's really nice that if you do have a combined category, if you can then further on in the subcategories, if you can break it out, that could be a very nice feature, because then of course you have the opportunity to tell EasyF where exactly are all your wires or where are all your cables. So in this example, we would very accurately return those products with high relevancy. Thank you, Robin. That's about all I have.
Yeah, that's a really good example, and thanks for that, Don. And at this point, we're just going to do another poll, and just to see what the attendees are thinking in terms of whether they should be doing some category restructuring. It'd just be interesting to see if that changes at all. So I'll just give you a few seconds to answer a question, and Matt, whenever you're ready, to be interested to see if those the numbers are any different.
Yeah, the poll is up right now. Again, we're at about 75% voted here, and we are at 76% saying yes and 24% saying they need to learn more first.
Yeah, and I'm really pleased at that, because hopefully what that indicates is that you in thinking about it and seeing the little kind of nuances of category design has kind of brought it to the forefront of your mind, and that's really a great thing. What I would say is, there are lots of little nuances. The way your products are set up, the way people use your site, the sort of users you have will all impact, what is the ideal category structure for you. And if you're planning on making changes, or you feel you need to make some changes, please get in touch with us. We're more than happy just to jump on a call with you to look at the problem, to see if there is a problem first of all, and to give you hopefully some really good advice, just to make sure you don't go down a road of making changes that might be detrimental. So please do get in touch. And at this point, I just want to mention that Easy Ask Direct program. This is a formal program that's available to all Storefront customers, where we actually replace the in-force Storefront support with support. We have teams of not only Easy Ask experts, but Storefront experts who are able to support all of your systems, Storefront, the Easy Ask components, and that's proved very valuable to many customers. As part of that, we will get you upgraded to the latest version of Easy Ask. We'll make sure you've got Studio, because not everybody has Studio, which is the interface that lets you manage Easy Ask. We'll make sure that all your analytics are working. The search as you type functionality, the instant search, will be made available too. And we'll give you full training and offer concierge level support, where we can work with you on any particular goals or issues that have come up. And optionally, you can also choose to have your site reskinned to make it mobile friendly, and perhaps add some more features. And next Tuesday on the 16th at 2 o'clock Eastern, we're actually doing a TUG webinar, where we're going to explain more about the options that you have, the roadmap, and we can talk in more detail about this whole program. So do put that in your diary. I think we're going to send an invitation out with the feedback email that we send in a few minutes. And this feedback is really important to us, and we would really appreciate it if you would just spend a minute to click on the link in the email. It will take you to a very simple form. It will take you less than a minute to fill in. But if you think these things are too detailed or not detailed enough, or they're too long, or they're too short, or whatever, you prefer me to wear a red instead of black, whatever your feedback is, we'd love to hear it. And also you can suggest topics that you would like us to cover in the future. So if you've got a particular problem area and you'd really like to learn more about it, please let us know and we'll try and accommodate you. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Matt and handle any questions that may have come up.
Thank you, Robin. Yeah, folks, so now the time. If you have any questions for us, please throw them in. We got time to answer a few of them. So we have one that just came in. So Robin, if a customer, so they're saying, I have brand as a top level category, how easy is it to change this?
Right, and it's quite common, that exists, and I've seen it in several of our customers already, and it can be very easy to do it. One of the things that affects how easy it is whether you have that information about the brand in the data as well. In other words, have you filled in the manufacturer field on your data, or do you have a manufacturer or brand attribute within Storefront? And so, even if you don't, there are ways and means of doing it. So I would suggest reaching out to us. One of the things that you can do within Studio, if you're a Studio user, you can actually remove a category from this structure without altering your Storefront system. So you can do that within the Easy Ask layer. Again, I would say reach out to us before doing that, because we obviously want you to be able to use brand or manufacturer. Customers need it for navigation and for search. And so you don't want to just remove categories if you haven't got something else that allows people to find things by brand. Hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you, Robin. Another one, can I create an attribute that doesn't currently exist in my catalog?
Right, that's a really interesting question, because of course you can create attributes in Storefront, and one of the things that I've been looking at with a couple of Storefront customers over recent weeks is exactly this problem of the customer wants more attributes, whether it's for searching or purely for navigation. And yes, you can create attributes, and you have a choice of ways of doing it. One of the easy ask features that really makes it stand out from other systems is that we have a facility. If you're a studio user, you can actually create attributes based on product selections that you can create in Studio, and they will appear to the front end, the Storefront system, as if they were in the catalog. So you can create brand new attributes. We're going to be doing a webinar on that feature and show some examples in future months. If that's going to be a popular area, we would plan on doing that. The other thing that you can do is you can obviously import attribute data, and it really depends on where is the information about the attribute. If you're trying to create a length or a weight attribute, where is that weight stored? Is it somewhere in your ERP? Have you got it in a PIM? We need to probably have a quick chat, and then we can suggest the best way of doing it. But if you've already got it somewhere, it might be embedded in your product description, and that we find quite a lot. And certainly if it's there, then it can be. We can kind of decode that description to pull out the attributes in some cases. And we would love to talk to you just to talk through the specific problems that you have, and see where the data is, because we can certainly create things automatically. Hopefully that answers that question, Matt.
Thanks, Robin. I got a couple more that have come in. We still got time, folks, if you have any more you want to ask. Will Storefront catalog attributes conflict with Easy Ask attributes?
No, they don't. So when Easy Ask reads the Storefront catalog, it reads all of the Storefront attributes. Any attributes that you create in Easy Ask are simply added. So what the user sees is all of them. They don't appear any different. So if you created let's just say a length attribute which didn't exist in Storefront, but you have other storefronts, then you would see length mixed in with all the other attributes. And obviously, if you've got Studio, you've got control over the order that they appear, and the order of the values and so on. So there is no problem with having Easy Ask attributes and Storefront attributes. In fact, it's the system is designed exactly for that situation, and that is a very common situation.
Okay, and this one, so given what you said about category names and paths and combined categories, how can we check whether our system is set up correctly?
Right, so by default, it should be. So it's always possible, of course, that if you've had somebody in do some consulting work or something like that, it's possible somebody could have got in and changed something. If you're not sure, then we can speak to us. We can ask you to send us a certain file, and we can check the settings in the file. But by default, those node exclusion rules should be set as per what the information that Don gave you, i.e. the ampersand, slash, and comma are the items that Easy Ask will use to ascertain whether it thinks this is a combined category or not. And the default is also that category name is used in the search. That you can check if you're a Studio user. You can actually check that on the relevancy screen. You will see it will be shown in bold if it's a default column. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you, Robin. I don't see any other questions, so I think that is it. Thank you, Robin and Don, and to everyone who attended this webinar. We appreciate your time. We want to take this past just viewing a webinar. We want you to actively get involved with us to take control of your B2B site. It's the first step to making dramatic changes to your site's capabilities, and well worth the time. Thank you again. Next webinar next week with Tug on Tuesday, as Robin mentioned, and then our next Lunch and Learn will be the second week of March. You will be getting emails regarding both of these webinars, and we hope to see you there as well. Thank you again. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.